That's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Many of our viewers are aware of the phrase, boil the frog slowly. If you're not, the idea of this analogy is that if you place a frog in a pot of boiling water, he'll jump right out. But if you raise the temperature slowly, he will hardly notice the incremental change until it's too late. So incremental change is part of the conditioning process. The other part of the process is to reward you or punish you based on the desired behavior. For instance, if the frog was fed while he was in the pot, it would be more difficult for the frog to jump out when he finally noticed the ever-increasing temperatures. Reward and punishment is conditioning as well. And Satan looks at you and me as the frogs, and he is whispering suggestions on how to condition us in the ears of those who serve him, and guess what? They're doing it. First, let's look at a simple example some of our viewers are already aware of. As other prophecy teachers have rightly pointed out, the simple act of taking a temperature in order to enter a store or a doctor's office has become routine during this pandemic. Taking your temperature is essentially a good thing, as it protects other people from the virus. But it's conditioning us to have our bodies scanned in order to receive a service. It's making it a habit. And that is the deceptive conditioning. As a healthcare worker, I have to allow myself to be scanned for temperature on a daily basis, and my guess is this is not going away anytime soon. But in the near future, I think the scan will be expanded to include biometric indicators, a facial scan. There are even some of these available on a smartphone. Now, we have accepted the temperature scan. The heat of the frog pot then will be raised, so to speak, by adding facial recognition. This will allow those scanning you to assess a database. In a doctor's office, this will allow the doctor to assess your health data. In a store, it will allow the employees to assess your financial data, or possibly even your vaccine status, to see if you took the vaccine or not. So taking a simple temperature is conditioning us to accept the physical act of being scanned daily. But there is also a reward punishment built in. The reward is you're able to participate in the economy. You're able to go into the doctor's office or into the store. In my healthcare facility, patients are not allowed to enter unless they have their temperatures taken and their temperatures are within a certain range. The same is true for some stores. That is a moderately big punishment for not being scanned. This is conditioning us also to accept a punishment for not being scanned. Also, did you notice this type of scan doesn't include a microchip, yet it allows all the access to personal data of a chip. Facial recognition and palm recognition technology are as individual as a fingerprint. Databases can pull up all your data just from your face or the palm of your hand. No chip is needed. Let me say that again. No chip is needed. So if you've been thinking you can avoid the mark of the beast by not taking a chip, I think you may have been mistaken. Now, Amazon stores have already tapped into this technology with a new Amazon One, which scans a person's palm within their store. And in this previous video, we discussed how China is using facial recognition technology and hundreds of millions of cameras set up on the streets around the country to implement its social credit score system. Jaywalk, and the camera identifies you and your account is penalized. Also, notice on this slide how temperature checks have now been added to the system. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. Now, having your temperature taken or using Amazon One is not the mark of the beast. The vaccine likely isn't as well, but the physical acts of scanning are a cultural conditioning that is getting us ready for it. And as I said, I expect the pandemic to continue into the near future. Why is that? Have you noticed how quickly any medicine that shows promise for treating this disease is quickly shut down and delegitimized? Ask yourself why every promising treatment is shot down, even those without serious side effects. So the first part of the mark of the beast conditioning is acceptance of the physical act of scanning, which of course will be necessary for implementation. But the second aspect of conditioning is to prepare us to worship the beast. And this is the more critical part. But it almost gets no attention. In Scripture, the mark of the beast is always associated with the worship of the beast. One cannot accidentally take the mark. In order to take the mark, you will have to worship the beast. It's taking the mark and worshiping the beast. It's both. So while we're being conditioned to be scanned, we're also subtly being conditioned to worship the beast. This is the part of the conditioning that most do not understand. This is the very deep and deceptive part of the conditioning. Some of it is even taking place within our churches. So in order to expose this type of satanic conditioning, we need to understand the four means by which the beast receives worship in the end times. And Scripture gives it to us in Revelation 13. And that's really the only way that Christians should be looking at these world events, through the light of Scripture, letting Scripture interpret Scripture. That's what this channel's all about. That's what we do. If that's important to you too, why don't you consider joining us by subscribing? Now, back to Revelation 13. He makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the beast, whose fatal wound was healed. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. The false prophet will be a miracle worker, pointing everyone towards the beast. Jesus himself warned us about this. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs and wonders so as to mislead, if possible, even the elect. Behold, I have told you in advance. So how is our world being prepared for a miracle worker? Through science. Yes, through the exact opposite thing. Our world is being coached to trust science to solve all our problems. But what happens when science fails? What about the problems science can't solve? Enter the miracle worker. He will likely cure diseases and maybe even appear to raise the dead. Yes, those are the likely things he's probably going to do. And science will be right there to pronounce them as real miracles and scientifically impossible. The scientists, I think, will be the very first to worship the beast. Second, Revelation 13 shows how the beast's military might will inspire worship. They worship the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him?" How is our world conditioning us to worship a military hero? The world always loves a winner, but they don't worship a winner. But they might worship someone who wins when there is no physical chance on earth of him winning. Same idea as we had with science. They would then attribute this power to being a divine power, although we would know that it would be satanic power. The prophet Daniel spoke of the beast in this way. He will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. He will attack the strongest fortresses, the strongest nations, and a demon will help him win. In America, sports revolve around power rankings and the odds of winning. We are being conditioned to think that way. Occasionally, an underdog will win, Several years ago, my daughter's college, Appalachian State, a small college, beat the mighty top 10 ranked Michigan Wolverines. But a local high school could never have beaten them. And that's what I envision the Beast will do. It'll be like a little high school beating a top 10 college team. He will upset the mightiest fortresses, possibly even the United States. And everyone will realize this victory was supernatural. Christians who understand prophecy will attribute it to demons. Everyone else will be tempted to believe the Beast won because he claims to be divine, and the victory makes them believe him and worship him. The third way Revelation 13 shows the beast will receive worship is through the mark of the beast itself. He provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Other than the physical conditioning that we've already spoken of, how else is our culture preparing us to worship the beast in this way? Think about the Apostle John back in the first century. When he heard about not being able to buy and sell, he probably thought, okay, but I can grow vegetables, I can sew my own clothes, I'll be okay. Most people in those days were financially self-sufficient. Today, most of us are not. And the conditioning goes even further. We are becoming addicted to things we don't need, like cell phones and social media. How many could live without social media? Can you imagine someone taking the mark because of something as trivial as social media? But that may be the first stage. Remember, they're going to boil the frog slowly. The fourth way Revelation 13 shows the beast will receive worship is by killing all those who don't worship the image of the beast. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, and so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Now, no one wants to be martyred, obviously, but our churches have been contributing to our conditioning in this area. So let me explain that, because this also is not well understood. Back in the first century, when a person was baptized, they knew it symbolized dying to their old self and being raised with Christ. They embraced Jesus' teaching. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will save it. In the Middle East today, they ask two questions before someone is baptized. Are you willing to suffer for Jesus? And are you willing to die for Jesus? If you can't answer both with a yes, they tell you you aren't ready for baptism. In a church in Syria, I had a brother tell me they have all their cemetery stones ready to go, and they store them at the church to remind themselves that they could be martyred at any time. Now that's Syria, where there's a civil war. Is your church as prepared to give up their lives? Are they prepared in this same way? My guess is probably not. Our Western churches are much more interested in teaching that we will escape persecution rather than teaching how to rely on the Spirit in order to endure it. Has Satan allowed much of the world to be excused from a fiery trial for a very short period of time, the time we're living in right now, to soften us up, so when the real thing happens, we won't be ready? I think it's part of the way we are being conditioned. So the pandemic, our science, our sports, our economy, and even our churches are all cooperating with Satan to prepare us for what may soon be offered to us. The reason most of us won't be able to refuse is we haven't been trained in how to prepare. If you want to find out how to train, just keep on watching and click right here to learn how to prepare for the last days. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.